Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing another manga first impressions review. Today we're looking at Choujin X by Sui Ishida. This is a published title by Viz. It's under the SIG line, although I'm not quite sure why. I guess this is not a standard Shonen Jump title. It's some sort of other thing. I think it's released digitally only or exclusively. It doesn't get published in a magazine before they publish it in volumes, and it's at Sui Ishida's pace. He apparently is famous enough and popular enough that he can do whatever he wants, and Shueisha is going to let him do it, right? And I can kind of understand that, but I just don't vibe with Tokyo Ghoul at all, so I don't really see it. The demographic for this is seinen, because the digital publication it releases on is a seinen magazine, or a seinen website, I guess. And the genres here are supernatural, action, and it's not really a superhero book because it doesn't follow under those trappings. Like, it's not about good versus evil necessarily, but rather about characters that gain powers having to decide how they're going to use them, which I guess sounds similar, but it's not the same thing. It doesn't feel like a comic book or like a superhero movie. It feels like something else, right? Like a fantasy story. But it is an urban fantasy type setting where the characters get powers in something akin to the current modern world, right? And it does not have an adaptation yet, but I'm sure it will eventually, as soon as they get enough chapters to make it, worth making an anime for it. I think there's about 70 chapters right now, but I don't know if that really means that there's enough content yet. So we'll see, but I'm sure it'll eventually come because it's by Tokyo Ghoul creator, right? Which is a very famous and important kind of manga from the last 10, 15 years, right? So, Choujin X, this is a series that I initially eschewed. I was not interested in it because it was by Sui Ishida, who is a creator that I don't really have any reverence or interest in. I read through the first volume of Tokyo Ghoul, and I absolutely hated it. I thought it was so garbage and bad and lame and stupid and pretentious. I just didn't bother picking up ever again, right? Eventually, this series came out. My friend and my roommate, who moved away a few months ago, he was not really a fan of his either, but he read through all of Tokyo Ghoul. He kind of pushed through it and finished reading through it and then through and he decided that he liked it through the growth of the development of Sui Ishida as he created this first manga. He realized that he enjoyed this creator's work, right? And so when Choujin X came out, he started reading it, and he really ended up liking it. And he's been telling me to read it for a long time, for over a year and a half or so. And usually I'm like, I don't really like Sui Ishida, so I probably won't read it. And he's like, dude, it's on the app, just go ahead and do so. And most of the time I would just kind of blow him off, right? Eventually, because it was my birthday last month, he decided to send me 5 volumes of it and forced me to read it, which I appreciate. I think it was a funny kind of thing, and I'm happy that he gifted me something, and I appreciate it, right? So I decided to start reading it, especially over the last weekend when he came by, and I did really enjoy it, actually. I thought it was great. It was really good. The art style is phenomenal. The storytelling is still a little bit of that weird kind of pretentious, like, woe is me kind of vibe, but it's a lot more toned down, and the character makes a lot more sense to be someone like that than the character from the previous story. You can kind of easily understand why this character has that kind of like, I'm nothing, I'm loser, I'm whatever, right? A lot better. So Sui Ishida definitely has grown in his abilities, right? And I really liked it. I thought it was great. Basically, there's these 2 characters. One of them is a tall, lanky, dark-haired boy, and he's kind of a loser. He doesn't really work too well, but he has a strong, positive vibe to him, right? He is someone that wants to help and stuff, but he doesn't feel that he has strength to do so. His best friend is this small, golden-haired, kind of like awesome guy. He's very athletic and stuff like this. And so these 2 characters are kind of a yin-yang kind of situation, right? Together, they become more than they are by themselves, but there's really one character, the golden-haired boy, who really is the one that's pushing everything, right? And making sure that they're meaningful people. They live in a world that has some sort of post-apocalyptic kind of generic, like Japan is in shambles, now we're divided and everyone kind of has to fend for themselves kind of vibe. Although at the same time, it's also very generic, like high school, everything's going fine kind of vibe. So it's kind of unclear there. I think the world building aspect of that was a bit lame. And the reason why this apocalypse sort of thing happened is because of the rise of these things called Choujins, which are basically people with powers. You could call them mutants, like in X-Men, it'd be about the same thing. And most of these people seem to have powers related to animals or concepts, kind of like devil fruits, right? You know, there's Logias, which are animal-based. There's Paramecias, which are generic, whatever, mostly concept kind things. And then there's Logias, which are elemental, right? So we get introduced to the first Choujin we meet, which is a smoke man, but this is like a sinister version of it instead of a positive version like Smoker from One Piece, right? And he destroys a plane, and our characters see this happening in the sky, and then they go investigate what's going on in the plane, right? And when they do, they get caught by this guy who is kind of like a loser, Yakuza-esque kind of wannabe, and he gets given powers. He gets injected with this kind of trigger type thing, and it turns him into a Paramecia style Choujin. So he gets the power to be stretchy, kind of like Mr. Fantastic, right? And so he starts trying to beat them up, and then they get access to the same thing that gave him powers, and because they think that they're gonna die, our two characters, who I haven't said the name of, but let me see if I can do so right now, Tokyo and Azuma, decide to take on the same drug to get powers. And this turns them into what they think they are, right? So Asuma, we don't know what he turned into, but Tokyo turned into a vulture because that was something of an animal imagery thing that he was very connected to through childhood, because people think that Asuma is like a lion, full of life and the center of attention, and Tokyo is a carrion bird that attaches himself to Asuma, and he kind of liked that idea because he thought it was cool, because vultures are interesting animals, right? And so he becomes this vulture man, which is basically what you see here on this cover, right? Although this is a much more interpretive kind of thing, right? And so now he has to deal with his powers. He doesn't know how to solve them. He has basically done nothing for himself, thought of anything by himself in years. And so now that he has powers, he doesn't know what to do. At the same time, his relationship with Azuma has broken down for some reason, I think because of the powers, and whatever Azuma got out of the Choujin, injection, made him realize something about himself, and he gets angry at Tokyo for bringing this up, right? And then Tokyo is off by himself trying to figure out how to fix his powers, and he encounters this woman who has similar, animal-based powers as him, who's a snake, and they meet at a zoo, and she starts fighting him because she wants to take him to be like a member of her group of Choujins, right? At the same time, there's also a second storyline which relates to that smoke Choujin from the beginning, which is this young girl who is a tomato farmer or something, and she ends up gaining powers through the Choujin that attacked the plane she was on. And now she's kind of running through the city, and it seems like at some point through the story, she connects with Tokyo, and now she and Tokyo are going to be partners throughout the rest of the story, right? And she's kind of the faction that is supposed to protect people, whereas Tokyo is being targeted by the faction that is supposed to destroy the world, right? Or they seem to want to control the world in a kind of nefarious way. So there is like a superhero element, right? Now, if Tokyo is a new mutant, he is being courted by the X-Men and by the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, right? That's kind of the same concept here. But the power systems are a lot cleaner than in X-Men, where X-Men is just like whatever you want. Anyone can have anything, right? And the powers are not very well defined, especially in the beginning. Here, everything is kind of clear. There's animal people, there's people that turn into things, and there's people that are somewhere in between, don't necessarily fall into other categories, into either of the other categories, but they have powers nonetheless, right? Which is the same as Logias, Paramecias, and zones, right? Same idea. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really fun, especially once Tokyo goes to the zoo and interacts with this snake lady. That action sequence is great. The way that he designed the character is awesome. She looks really good. And the action sequences are really enjoyable. There is, however, one issue that I had with this volume specifically. Now, it's not with the series, because I read through some of the chapters on the Shonen Jump app as well, And the issue that I had was not available there. It was not visible there. And that's because in this book, which is the first printing, this is the original printing from 2021, the second chapter is deeply, annoyingly confusing because it's missing information. I didn't really check the page count to see if it was different, but there are whole sequences missing from the version that was printed in this volume. Now, I don't know why this is. I know that Sui Ishida basically releases this whenever he feels like, and that means that he probably had the ability to decide to change the story, right, in some way. And so he probably released an issue or a chapter and then went back and changed it, right? But I don't know which version is the final edition because I know he did change it. I saw on Reddit that people were talking about it, but I don't know if the version that was printed is the corrected edition or if the version that's on the Shonen Jump app is corrected. Right, I assume that the one on the Shonen Jump app is because that one flows much better and it has better information and it makes more sense. But the way that manga publishing works, I feel like this would be the version that would be finalized, but I'm not sure. And that's kind of annoying. So what I recommend is that you read through the first 3 chapters on the app. You can get those for free. You don't even have to have an account. You can just log on and read through those first 3 chapters. And then, assuming that you want to collect it physically, pick up from there. Because that way you won't have any of the really annoying confusion that I felt reading through the second chapter. And the reason it's confusing is because they're basically 2 separate storylines initially. And then towards the end of the first volume, they connect, right? The first chapter introduces us to the smoke Choujin who blows up the airplane, and then that stops, right? And then we get introduced to Tokyo and Azuma. The second chapter tells us what happens after the Choujin blows up the airplane, and it follows this character who used to be a farmer who grows tomatoes that are really fancy and cool. They're called tomatoes with a Y, and she gets infected by the smoke Choujin's powers. And so now she has to deal with finding out how to use them herself. And she has a very positive, like, I gotta save the world kind of vibe, kind of like Superman. And so her chapter 2, focuses on her getting out of the wreckage, landing somewhere, finding some help, and then running around and trying to understand what she's doing. And then something happens, we don't get to see what, and then she shows up to help Tokyo fight that snake lady at the end of the volume, right? And so the version that makes more sense is the one on the app because that one actually gives you all of the elements that I just described, whereas the one in the manga kind of skips pages. And I don't know if this is a printing issue, if this was a change that Sui Ishida made, although I think that's what it was because of what I saw on Reddit, or if it's just because Viz is kind of incompetent sometimes at their job. I hope that in a second or third printing of this, they fix it. I don't know if they will. I texted them on Twitter, and obviously they didn't respond to me because who am I, right? But it's kind of really annoying that, this happened. So I recommend you guys read it through the app first and then switch over to the physicals. I think it'll probably be for the best, just so you don't get confused. Although possibly just read it digitally. You don't really miss out on much except like author pages and maybe some extra little bits here and there. So your mileage may vary if you care about that or not. If you don't, I recommend you just read it on the app. That's probably for the best. So yeah, those are my thoughts here on Choujin X. I hope I made sense and you guys understand what I'm talking about. And thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys next time.